Where are you at right now? You're still on the road, right?
I'm actually home because tomorrow night is New York.
Nice, nice. That'd be a show.
Yeah, New York City. So City Winery will be good.
Right on. Well, listen, until recently, like getting that note from your PR, I didn't realize that you had put out material in 2013, and I feel like a bit of a schmo for that because I consider myself to be a fan.
Oh, that's okay. That record that we put out was a bit under the radar. It was a bit undercooked as well, and it's kind of part of a whole plan, to tell you the truth. Um, so it's not too surprising that many people didn't know about it. So it's okay.
Well, maybe I'm not alone there. Can you perhaps talk a little bit about what you've been up to since Mercy came out in 2008?
Yeah, we had done a lot of touring leading up to the release of that record. We toured for about 2 years leading up to it, and then for another strong year after it was released. And for some reason we were having a tough time with the crowds. We did some opening slots, and they weren't feeling us for some reason. It's probably just the wrong kinds of tours.
Hmm.
Um, we toured with Manson, and I like Manson, and I appreciate his music here and there. It was an odd pairing, but we were putting this record out with Columbia Records, and I had been through DreamWorks Records and so DreamWorks and Geffen, and it was a new deal with Columbia and a whole new staff, and it would have come across as kind of destructive and difficult, as I kind of had that rap as it was.
Okay.
Only for not for any drug reasons or anything like that. Only for wanting to make great records and fighting for it to be great to the end. That to me was trying to maintain integrity. Sometimes it doesn't go hand in hand.
Yeah.
With the labels. So kind of viewed as just a real, I would think a real artist, because that's what I think real artists do. So when we went to Columbia, I felt a little pressure to not give a bad impression. And so I said yes to the Manson tour, and it just ended up being self-destructive, to tell you the truth, because it was 2 months solid of 5,000 people a night chanting "You suck" and throwing coins at me.
Right.
So that was a little defeating over a time with a record that we were excited about. We were proud of the record. Ended up being a tough time, but we stuck it out. We toured for another year there, but then I took a break to try something different, and instead of doing another record with a full band, I decided I had a bunch of acoustic songs that I felt would kind of do well in that area, not necessarily having big drums and loud electric guitar. So I made that record. I ended up calling it a solo record just because I don't know. I could have called it an hours record as well. I just decided not to.
Right.
For change of pace, just to see. So I did that. That was a process of a couple of years as well, because I started it and my mom got sick, and we lost her to cancer during the time of me making and putting that record out.
Right.
So kind of went through that. As everybody does, I just suffered a lot of loss through that time of Mercy, and my first cousin, who was raised as my brother, he passed away at 36 years old, and my girlfriend had taken her life right before that, and I kept pushing through, you know,
Jeepers.
trying to move forward, and you know, kind of hiding in the music, and the music was a good thing for me, therapy. But somehow, at the end of the Mercy cycle and going into my solo record, it just kept getting worse in the sense that I lost my mom. I kept pushing through that. You know, I buried her in the middle of shows and got on stage the next night in Hoboken, New Jersey, and played 2-hour set without, you know, without thinking about it.
Yeah.
I did it because that's what I was doing, and I was in the machine of going. So I guess after all that, decided that I didn't really want to be on a major label or any label at that moment in time, to tell you the truth. I'd asked Rick Rubin to let me go from Columbia Records, from American Columbia. And though I love Rick very much, and I didn't have a single issue with him. I love that guy. He's an old friend. I just didn't want to be a part of that machine for a bit. So I wanted to try to make a bunch of music and put it out on my own terms, on my own time lengths and everything like that.
Right.
So started to look at this new age where we were in with the internet and all of that, and just realized like we really don't have to sign with a label right now. There are a couple options, you know, with crowdsourcing and crowdfunding, and I was on the fence about that because I felt like, well, I don't want to beg people for money. That's not right. It's a little self-congratulatory I thought, to assume that people should be donating money for us to make a record. But we did do a campaign, and it was not about donations at all. It's basically just pre-orders for the most part.
Yeah.
And so we decided, well, if we put up pre-orders and we offer a few things that people would get for their money, whether it's merchandise or you know, like signed lyric sheets or private performances, things like that. But there would be no begging or anything or asking for a dime from anybody.
Right.
For something in return, you know. So we did that. We hit our goal, and we made the record. And what happened is I had so many songs. I had a couple hundred songs that I was looking at, and I felt like I'd like to do something where it's almost like a play that could exist long after we're able to play music anymore. Something that I could put together in that kind of way, that kind of production. So we started to just record, and so that record that we put out, I think it was 2012, 13 maybe. That was the first one in the series of these records.
Okay.
And the point of that record, it's a little crude sounding, not super hyped up or super produced in the sense of a lot of instrumentation compared to some of the other records that I have made and what I often do. But I did that on purpose because it's the first part of the story that's supposed to kind of go back to an early time in life, a youthful kind of energy. And so, but it, you know, I don't think many fans understood it because they're used to the story of Lullabies from me, which was my first official release. And at a young age, it's a kind of mature, produced sounding record.
Yeah, it was clean.
So to go back to being pretty crude and raw, I'm not sure if people understood, because unless they're really committed to, you know, to an artist, and in the sense of, you know, it's like if Seal made a really crude record, I'm not sure if I would love it as much as I did like Kiss from a Rose and all that stuff. I don't know if I would. It's hard to say. So I knew that it was a risk, but I had to do it because I had a bunch of these songs of the spirit that existed before I had gotten to where I was on the sort of lullabies. And I had the choice of letting them go and never revisiting that place artistically and emotionally, which sometimes I feel like it was a better thing to do, just they were part of the past and I was younger. But I decided to explore them and go there. And so if I would have produced them in a way that was older, like, say the way that Sting has developed some of his songs from the Police and done them in his solo career, I felt like I didn't want to do that. So I had to revisit this mindset. That was where I was at during that time. So that's what the first record was, this Ballet the Boxer record. And then I was happy in a sense when I could, just that we made it, we put it out, because I could get beyond that, get back to my growth and where I felt like I was going to, where I wanted to be creatively. So over the last 5+ years, I just kind of disappeared into the recording studio and started to record as many of the songs as I could. And so this record that we just put out, New Age Heroine, that for me is kind of picking up from the emotional space that I was in during sort of lullabies, and I think evolving even a bit from that. So as I see it, New Age Heroine is kind of the follow-up record to sort of lullabies for me.
Nice.
So sequentially, it would be, really, if I had to do it, it would be like Ballet the Boxer as a youth, then sort of lullabies, then New Age Heroine.
Right on.
Yeah, so, New Age Heroine, I decided to just put it out pretty quickly as well, because I've been working on even, again, the evolution of that for where I'm at, is this record Spectacular Sight, which was built to be more of these kind of stadium anthems with still the, hopefully, the human sense of what I do on some of the more slow, deep songs, but bringing them up to a place of where they hopefully are really getting people going, lifting people up in a large space. So it was a slight pickle, because Spectacular Sight is where we're at right now. These are the songs that we want to play. But New Age Heroine, we can't ignore these songs. There's something about them that I really believe in. So again, I just kind of put out this kind of quiet, under the radar release of that record in hopes that it would just get into people's hearts, and it was not about a big hype machine or anything on the record. I want people to discover it naturally. I want them to share it with one another and have it be that kind of record, like, for me, like a record like Pink Moon was, Nick Drake. I didn't know about that record until many, many years later. And discovered it just from word of mouth again, and it's a special record to me for that reason. So I just wanted New Age Heroine to be like that for people.
Cool. Well, listen, I'm a crowdfunder. Like, I've kickstarted, I've pledged, and I've had experiences from incredible to utterly shitty using those interfaces. So I'm kind of curious as well what artists are going to do to gain capital and allow their fans to buy into new music.
Yeah, it's super tricky now because Spotify and all those, obviously, like the Netflix of music.
Yeah.
And you can't be upset with the consumer for wanting it, because people love music, and to have it all at their fingertips for that price, it's an amazing thing. But Spotify and the labels, they're all partners and buddies now, and the labels again are stealing from us more than ever now. They're just stealing from us with the streams, and then you pull your music from the streaming sites, and the fans are like, get upset with you about it and think that we're being cheap or whatever it is. But there's literally no way to make the product if there's not some form of supporting it.
Yeah.
So that's what we're left with. Luckily, we've gotten through this time because I have this building and I bought a bunch of gear, and I think I learned how to use it. So luckily, I've been able to record, and I've had, I work production jobs, and I've produced things for other people, and that's funded our music now. But without that, and without the support of basically a fairy godmother over here, who's also jumped on to really support us and help out, it's really a fucked time.
Yeah. Yep. And my understanding is that Spotify hasn't shown a profit yet. That's kind of scary.
That's what they're saying, right? They haven't shown a profit yet. I don't know, somehow, millions of people are using it.
Yeah.
At $10 a month. They say the company's worth multi-billions of dollars, yet they haven't seen a profit. I'm confused by that.
Yeah, me too.
And I've been saying now since it started, because I know what I went through and how tough, it can get with the labels, scratching my head going, wait, something is not right. There is no way that they would give. The labels now hold the cards because Spotify and these other companies are going to want the content, and they have the rights to all these artists, so the labels hold the card. And there's no way, knowing what I know about the labels, they're obviously businesses, there's no way they would give that away. So I kept going, they have to be cut in. They have to be getting something that nobody's talking about. They have to be in on the back end of Spotify as a company. There's no other way. And sure enough, it's been coming out. But I've been saying it from the beginning. But yeah, how is it that they're not showing a profit?
Yeah, I don't get that either. Because you're right, everybody's using it. It's nuts. So the touring that you're doing right now with Royston Langdon, are you both performing solo acoustic, or are you using supporting musicians?
We're both. Royston plays entirely alone. He plays guitar and piano, jumps back and forth.
Okay.
And I play a bunch of my set alone, and then I have a piano player from ours playing some songs with me as well.
Okay. Cool.
But it is a stripped down set. That's the vibe of it. It's not full band or loud or anything.
Cool.
I mean, I get kind of loud, but
Have you and Royston ever co-wrote material together?
We haven't. We just met, and that's the first day of tour. So yeah, we have not written together. We sing together on the tour, which is just awesome for me. I'm happy about it. But we haven't written anything together. No.
Right.
I love Royston's voice. I love his talent. I've been a fan from the beginning with Space Hug, so it's such a thrill for me, this whole tour.
Awesome. I'd love to know what you feel is the most upbeat song that you've ever written is.
The most upbeat?
Yep.
The most upbeat. Let me think. I go through the sort of lullabies. I'm not. There's always a silver lining in just about everything that I write. Upbeat, emotionally upbeat. We're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. God, Saint off of Mercy, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Mercy, I mean, of all your catalog, Mercy remains my favorite album. I still play it all the time.
That was the first one. I'm sorry. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I still play it all the time. I think it's a great album.
Thank you. That was the first one that I felt like I completed because Rick, like there were things on the Sort of Lullabies that I felt like I was starting to find the space that I wanted to be in. But, just the struggle with the label, they didn't really allow me to finish it. I've finished I'm a Monster and Sometimes and As I Wander, like a reprise to a song called Drowning on the record. But I wasn't able to make that record how I wanted to, even though, my A&R guy would say, "Are you fucking crazy? Like, you wrote every note on the record. You continued to work on it, but it was always within some sort of structure and confines of them controlling it.
Yeah.
Until I just went and recorded songs on my own, and like I recorded I'm a Monster and Sometimes on my own, and then if I was able to do that with the whole record, I think it would have gotten to where I wanted it to be, like Mercy did. And when I went with Rick Rubin, he said, "I think these are the best songs that you've written to date. I love you. I believe in you. Go make your record." And he didn't come to the studio one day.
Wow.
We worked on the songs at his house, the song arrangements. I would play them, and he would say, "Maybe repeat that part," or "I don't think we need all of these parts." And so we would look at it and say, "Okay, well, what should we cut?" And that was a very collaborative process, even though he didn't write anything or he didn't get into specifics to say, "Okay, sing this way or write this way or these should be the words." There was nothing like that. It was always just challenging me to complete it. So, so Mercy to me was the first time I felt like I could say, okay, whether or not it was going to be amazing to other people, who can ever tell, but because, it's different songs and Sort of Lullabies, so people might be attached to that because of the songs or the feeling, the spirit of the songs. But as far as the completion of the project, I felt, okay, that's the best I can do right now. And I listen back to it and I say, okay, I could change that or change that. You can always change it.
Mm-hmm.
But at least I felt, okay, we've covered the spectrum of emotion and art that I want to cover on this record. I was given complete freedom to do it from Rick and the label at the time, Geffen. So I'm happy. We were real proud of it, and there's some things that I go, great song, could have been a better mix or better approach with the recording, but all in all, I think that happens with everybody.
Yeah.
What's most important is that when we finished it, it wasn't this sense of, oh wait, we are nowhere near finished. That's what happened with Precious and the Sort of Lullabies. The DreamWorks just said, "No, you're done." I said, "But I just Precious was like, but I just started." Like, "No, you're done." I said, oh, this is going to be a weird record. It's not half done, but okay.
Classic. Now you've described Hours as a collaborative solo project, like it's always your creative vision ultimately. Do you find that being able to do everything musically ever works against you?
I try to, the best I can, to be objective about what I'm capable of and what I'm not capable of, and when I need somebody else's playing abilities or their approach on the instrument to add to it. So I have a few moments here and there when I feel like, okay, I've hit the wall for now, but I'm really, I don't know what the adjective would be, if it's fearless or crazy, but I just don't stop. I hit the wall. I don't look at it as defeat. I look at it as like, okay, great. It brought me to this place of forcing me to go a different direction. And so I'm always learning. So for me, that's why the arrangement that we have with my friends and the people who have played in Hours, it's like I'm running with an idea already, and I play it for them, and they either like it or they don't like it, and they start to hear an approach or not. So the sort of lullabies, for the most part, with the exception of a couple things on the bass, for the most part, and there were a couple things that were added from Bosbor on the guitar, and like Patrick Warren, who played keyboard on it, where it's like, okay, wow, I didn't think of that. But for the most part, it was like I wrote every single part and pattern on that record. Mercy, I decided to take a different path. I had a couple new guitar players in the band, and one guitar player that played mostly the really spaced out stuff, and then a more meat and potatoes kind of guitar player would play hold down the changes and that kind of thing.
Right.
And I kind of do both of those as well, but I figured, you know what, this time, instead of me completing each song, let me leave certain aspects open for this crew to bring something to it, and it was still like the song was finished, kind of thing, but the way that we were coloring it in was not. Like the house was built, but like, okay, we're gonna put a whole bunch of things out here in the and decorate the landscape, or what color we're gonna paint inside, are we gonna that kind of thing. And normally I would, for the most part, be on continuing to fill those ideas in myself. And again, people can look at it and be like, what a prick, because he's controlling. It's really not the case. It's more about when you're trying to get something going, for people to genuinely understand why I do it this way and why it came about this way. When you're alone and you're really trying to get a project going, and you can't find anybody to commit and play with you, that's where I was before I signed my deal with DreamWorks.
Nice.
I was sitting alone, writing these songs alone, coming up with all the parts alone, and just trying like crazy to find people who wanted to devote time to being in a band. And I had written all the songs, and I got used to doing it that way. So then when I found some people to play with me, we only played like 3 or 4 shows tops, and then the whole bidding war started.
Interesting.
To sign me. So I had built it essentially on my own, and there have been plenty of times where even in between record cycles, where again I'm alone, and I spend a lot of time alone working on the songs. So it's not a thing where we get in the room and the band writes the song and then I run away with it. Like, okay, thank you. It really is like I spend the time alone doing it. And when there's not always budgets and all that stuff, it's not easy to keep everybody around and going. So there I am again alone.
Right.
So the perception can be like, oh, the guy's controlling, but it's not that. I did it because, and I do it because you don't have a choice. It's like if you're running a business, even if it's a pizza shop, and it's your business, and at the end of the day, you may have great employees, but it still comes down to if you can't afford to pay everybody, who's going to hang around the pizza place and deliver for you and make pizza? You got to do it. So it's often out of necessity, and then because I got accustomed to doing it that way, like I'll start to write the song on the guitar or the piano, and then all of a sudden I go, okay, I got to figure out the drums, because I can't. Historically, it's like I can't wait for a drummer to come in and start to play or tell me what they think it should be, and then I play with a new drummer, and then they tell me what they think it should be. I have to really lock down the idea, so the parts are part of the writing, the composition. So it's not as simple as, okay, I just have this strummy guitar. What do you think the drums should do? It's like I would have this guitar, and then I would say, okay, the drums are going boom, 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 boom. So the guitar is not doing that. And then once I write it that way, I want to hear it that way because that's what's making it work.
Cool.
So, that's kind of what happens with me and how the process goes. And every once in a while, for Mercy, like I said, I'd leave a lot of that open. And I left it open for a long time to see what people would contribute. And there was definitely contribution. That record was better as a result of me not doing it entirely alone. But I could have completed it alone just the same. And it would have been, to me, it would have been still a great record. And there were plenty of times where I had to step in and say, no, this is the exact drum part. Plenty of times, or no, this is the guitar part. Check this out. I'll sing the notes to you. Like, this is the part.
Right.
So even on that, so much of that still happened. I left it open, but it came down in the end to me saying, okay, no, I have to do this. And luckily, I have always had great people working with me in the sense of great human beings. Before even their ability to perform, I made a decision years ago when I started to build the band, like in around 1996, when I started to rebuild from scratch, that it was more important for me to be around good people. And I'm not talking badly about any of the people that I had played with because they were close friends, but when you start to audition people, you may have a great player, but they're just a complete asshole. So for me, it's like, well, I want to have the band full of people that I like to be around, because this is a life that I'm building, not just a one-off project that's going to implode in 9 months. So I've always made the decisions for the band based on human beings. So because of that, we've always had a great working relationship through the years and a great understanding. And for the most part, again, I've brought people into what is almost like a finished idea. So that prevents the weirdness of, well, I built this with you. What's going on? Where do I fit in?
Right.
Not that I haven't had a very devoted and loyal team for a long time, people who are side by side with me in the trenches. There's just a different thing about in the trenches. Like if you're in the trenches with me and we're rehearsing 5 days a week, and we're on the road for 5 years at a time, and everybody's working their asses off, that still doesn't mean that everybody wrote the song that got us there. And that's the difference for anybody to try to understand that from the outside, on how I do it and why I do have the support unit on the inside and all that. But, I still play with people that I believe in. I truly believe in them as people and as performers. So there's a lot of love there to, from the start with all of it. So it's not based on, well, this person's kind of an asshole, but they're really great. It's never been like that for us in ours.
Cool.
We've never settled for that. It's always what I had mentioned. So that's kind of the dynamic and how we get it done, and why it's always a positive experience, because the process for me, again, since 1996, has always been, we try everything. There's no idea that we would ever label as stupid. It sounds a bit hippie-ish, but we just don't use that kind of language when we're talking about anything, because it's so crazy, it just might work. Has always been the philosophy. So the moment somebody comes into the room and doesn't try an idea, you immediately feel the energy shut down. So that's how we keep the flow going with our group. We try every idea, and the best one usually rises to the top.
Right on.
Basically by the temperature in the room. It's not even specifically me that has to always say, no, this is what I want to do. It'll come down to that. If there's confusion, I'll have to make a choice, and I'll say, okay, I thought about it for a few days. This is what I want to do. But it's usually like the best idea is clear, and we all look at each other and go, oh yeah, that's great. That's great. So that's ultimately how we've kept it positive through the years. Anybody that's wondering the dynamic and how it works, that's kind of what we have going on.
Nice. Listen, you've contributed music to Hollywood movies, but I don't believe that you've ever fully scored a film or a stage play. Is that something that you'd like to do?
At times I feel like I'd really love to do it, and I think that a lot of elements of the music I write and the way that I write it can be cinematic. I've watched some of the footage of these composers and these people who score these movies, and it's no joke. Whether it's Hans Zimmer or John Williams, I watched something recently on a bunch of them. I have a lot of respect for them, and I love a great challenge. So I think that if I was able to do it, if the finances were made available for me to do it, where I would have the resources available to me, string sections and things like that, I would be excited about doing it. I'd be a little nervous, but I think that nervous energy is what has always pushed me to do well. So, yeah, I think at some point, I would like to try it, but I don't say it lightly. I just want to say that because I know a lot of people who are home with their computer thinking that they're, that they can easily score a film. Maybe they can. I don't know. But I see it as, like, to do it well, I see it as a pretty daunting thing. And I would take it very seriously if I did it. So, yeah.
You're often name dropped with Trent Reznor, and he's been making some brilliant soundtrack music over the past decade. You know what I mean? I think you could totally do something like that.
I believe I could. Yeah, I believe I could. Yeah, he sounds great. And I often find myself, just, regardless of whatever's going on, constantly in parallels with him, mindset about whatever it is. If it's society at that time, if it's music in general, philosophies, I often find myself pretty seeing eye to eye with him. And I've always respected his talent a lot. Not that that means that I could just naturally do it, but I think I could do it. I really do.
Cool. I'll finish up with this one. What was the last time that a piece of modern music truly affected you? What was it? And why do you think you reacted to it?
Piece of modern music. Let's see. So I get the time frame right here, and I don't leave anybody out. A lot of modern music is a lot popular music, I should say, not even modern, popular music, because constantly great people doing great things in modern times. Popular music, for me, people can get all upset and say that there's not real great artists or performers, but somebody like Beyonce is just so good. It's hard to say there's no great musicians of talent when somebody like Beyonce is all over mainstream culture. But I think Radiohead continued to make great music. The U2 shows that I went to over the last couple of years have blown me away. Some of the songs on the records, I love them live. When U2 performs them live.
Mm-hmm.
I would hate to be somebody here that sits here and talks poorly of anybody, especially some of U2 that I just have always loved and had so much respect for. And I've had a little trouble getting connected to the sound of their newer records for some reason. Though I think there's some great stuff in there. I'm not sure. I mean, I love the sound of the that's Alabama Shakes record. I like
nice.
I like the way that sounded. I mean, when she kind of came screaming in over the airwaves with her voice and "Don't Want to Fight No More," for me, I was in. Amy Winehouse, just unbelievable. But that's, I guess, going back now more than half a decade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. I'm not, because I've spent that same amount of time now underground. I haven't been, and because of the way that the world of the music business is now, where we have to do so much of the work to find it, I haven't done a lot of that digging. There are a couple, bands out there that I think are great. Arctic Monkeys, awesome. As far as a band, I think it has to be the Arctic Monkeys for me, in the sense of a more current band that has put out some records that I love, that I heard that I was really feeling. Probably Arctic Monkeys stuff.
Yeah.
The record before this last one, AM or something.
Yeah. They've never really made the same record twice, right? They always kind of change it up somehow. That's interesting.
Yeah. I think the last record that I got that I really loved, I just got Royston's record. I love that record. But it's probably Black Star from Bowie. again blown away. You know, I was 68 years old, is still putting this record out. Turned 69, we lose him, and it's one of his best records ever, and one of the coolest records out there at that time. Probably Bowie, Arctic Monkeys, and again, like I said, Radiohead and Tom York have done some great things. I haven't been as invested in the last Radiohead record just because I was more in the mindset of output from me. I go through long stretches of, okay, now just absorb other people's music and be a fan. And then it's time for output. And in those times of output, I don't listen too much.
Yeah.
Other than, you know, rough mixes and what we're working on. So I think more than ever in my life, the last 5 years, I've disappeared from listening to other artists the most, because I've always been, first and foremost, was a huge fan of music. Before anything else, before I considered myself even a musician or a singer or artist, I always fan first, and just trying to make something worthwhile that stands up with these other people that I love their work. So, I go with Bowie, Arctic Monkeys, Beyonce. I actually love Rihanna as well. For whatever that's worth, I really, really loved her last record.
Cool.
I don't know if it was her last one or not, but it's the one that's about 3 years old.
I imagine it'd be hard if you're always in the studio and you're always creating music to find the time to just listen to other stuff that's out there as well. It's kind of like doing what you do for a living and doing it for entertainment as well, right?
Yeah, because I haven't stopped over here in the last, about 5 years, just output. I took a break for a few weeks and went on to Atlanta Del Rey. Then kind of just got back to it. And like writing for other people and recording records for other people and stuff. So I haven't, I feel bad about it at times, but I just haven't had the ability to do it.
And you put out that album in 2013. You've got New Age Heroine and Spectacular Sight coming out. That's 30, maybe 35 of the possibly 200 songs that you said you've written. So there's probably a few other things you're dusting up there to release or do something with as well. Yeah.
I recorded about 50 songs in the last while. 10 went on to New Age Heroine. 20 are going to go on to Spectacular Sight. About 10 of them have gone to this girl Hannah that I've been writing for and producing.
Cool.
Young singer. So there's about 40 there, and then there's another 10 or so that we're looking at for a different project even, because super dark, like rock and roll stuff, it didn't seem to fit anywhere as of now. So
cool, man.
And some more, maybe solo ones as well. So we'll see what happens.
Where's the best place for people to keep in touch with you and your music? Just hours.net?
Hours.net's the best spot.
Okay.
Instagram, we keep pretty up to date with anything that's going on, but I don't oversaturate anything. I'm not a part of that mindset or philosophy.
Yeah.
I try to make good stuff. I try to take my time if I need to take my time and try not to rush it. And then I hope that it's good, and when it's good, we'll put it out. But I'm not the kind of person that feels like I need to do stuff every day to try to fool people that something is happening when it's not. I mean, I probably have more going on than most people who post every day, but I don't feel a need to overexpose it for that rush of, adrenaline to my brain.
Yeah.
I'm more under the radar about it, but we do try to keep at least up to date with Instagram about what's going on.